All right, I think we'll get going. Looks like we've got a nice group today. Um, I am Tad Bradley, the North American sales rep for Maya Trails, and I'm based in Seattle. For those of you that don't know me, nice to meet you virtually. I hope you're all managing in some very interesting, strange, and bit stressful times. Jimmy Rogers, the founder and director of Maya Trails, is joining me live from, I wish it was Lake Atitlan, Jimmy, which as your background indicates, but I think
No,
it's the city, right?
it's in the city, in my house, actually.
As we all are, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're going to do a virtual tour today and a deep dive into a place that is particularly close to my heart, as where I really got my start in tourism, and that's Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. That's an incredible view of the sunrise over the lake and the three volcanoes and some of the villages you can see there on the left-hand side of your screen. I started in tourism leading adventurous treks in the highlands of Guatemala that ended up with this view, actually, a very early morning sunrise over Lake Atitlan and then a trek down to the lake. So it is one of those places for me, and I'm sure many of you have similar places in the world, that is truly a soul place, and one that if I were given about a second to decide where I wanted to go in the world right now, it would be this place, Lake Atitlan. It is that special for me, and I think for any of you that have been there, you understand why, and you can probably tell just from this photo how spiritual and beautiful a place that it is. And Jimmy, I know you spent a lot of time there with your family as well, getting out of the city and escaping to the beauty of Lago Atitlan.
Not for the past month.
Yeah, well, hopefully in the near future, you'll be able to get back out there, and we'll be able to get guests of all of you attending back to Guatemala and back out to the lake. So our first deep dive series was on Guatemala City and Antigua, and if you missed that, that is archived on our YouTube channel. I'll send out a link to everybody that's registered for this one as well, so you can jump into both Lake Atitlan as well as Antigua and the city. But today we're going to be heading farther into the highlands, into Lago Atitlan, as well as touching a bit on Chichicastenango, which is one of the more famous, if not the most famous, indigenous market in the Americas. And first we'll give you a bit of a geographical orientation. And there's another Guatemalteca, Chapina. That's Jimmy's daughter, Emma, I think. I'll give you a little bit of geographical orientation. Guatemala, as you know, should know if you're in the travel business, is in Central America, down to our south. It's really not very difficult to get to. And we'll show you a couple of the direct flights that when flights begin flying again, how you can send your guests to the area. We had this slide in the last deep dive that we did, and Guatemala was getting a lot of really incredible press at the end of last year. It was on the Voters Go list for 2020, and Nat Geo also had it on its must-travel list for 2020. Unfortunately, of course, it turned out to be a bit of a challenge given the circumstances we're living in today. But it is a very oftentimes misunderstood and really a lesser known destination. But I will send you links to those two articles because they really do paint the picture of what makes Guatemala so special. Everybody that flies into Guatemala will fly into Guatemala City. And from Guatemala City, most people head off to Antigua for a couple of nights. We won't go into that. You can watch the previous deep dive webinar for more details on Antigua. Lake Atitlan is about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive from Antigua into the highlands of Guatemala here, this big high altitude mountain lake. It sits at about 5,000 feet in elevation. It's a collapsed volcanic caldera that is quite an ancient one, and incredibly deep as well. I think it's something like 300 to 500 meters deep. I'm not sure they've ever found the bottom, Jimmy. It's an incredibly deep lake with quite a history of volcanic eruption in past years. As I mentioned, getting to Guatemala once the flights are flying again is very easy and doesn't take much time. From Miami, it's a 2.5 hour flight. From Los Angeles, it's the longest flight from North America that's direct, well, second longest. It's about a 4 hour flight. From New York, I think it's about a 5-hour flight. So for all the gateways, LA, Houston, and Miami, you're talking about at most a 4-hour flight to Guatemala. So very easy to get to for a long weekend escape even, or a 5-day, escape combining Lake Atitlan and Antigua. Very doable, and something that your guests can easily do once those flights are flying again. Jimmy, I thought I'd just give you a chance to reintroduce yourself to those who know you, and to introduce those to those who haven't come across Maya Trails or you yet. So take it away, Jimmy.
How's it going? Jimmy Rogers here in Guatemala. Pretty much enjoying the family. I don't know if it's enjoying it. You can call that homeschooling is enjoying, but it's been a good time. It's an eye opener for everyone, I guess. But I hope everyone's keeping safe and enjoying as well. Keeping those hands washed. But I founded the company 11 years ago, back in 2008. Those were another tough times when I basically started. So I started pretty much with how we are right now, and then basically that's how we're going to start off again once this thing gets going. But we've been going for 11 years now. 100% Guatemalan. Everyone, the whole staff is 100% Guatemalan. Has studied in tourism. Most of the staff have a degree in tourism, so it's. I think you can hear all the
Speaking
screaming.
of homeschooling,
They're doing pool day right now outside, so we're pretty much tailor-made FITs, small groups, very specialized adventure, hitting always the luxury, the top notch. So that's pretty much who we are.
and
So I'll
Jimmy,
get it back to see. I gotta go 2 seconds.
Jimmy may not look Guatemalan. He may look more like an Irishman from Boston, but that is because his mom is actually from Boston. That gives him one of his qualities that I don't like as much, and that he's a Boston sports fan. And of course he walked off for that little comment. All right, we're going to jump into what makes Maya Trails unique as well, and that's they have a modern vehicle fleet, and that's is largely due to the fact that they are also the owner of the Hertz franchise in Guatemala. So they're always refreshing their fleets, always have new vehicles, and of course now in the era of Corona, the sanitation and cleanliness of those vehicles is paramount, not only for Maya Trails but also for Hertz. So that they do have policies and procedures coming from a corporate company like Hertz in terms of their vehicles to make certain that they are in good shape and well cared for and cleaned. But then the other thing that many people don't know is Guatemala actually has the second highest per capita ownership of helicopters in the Americas after Brazil. So for those of you that have high-end clients, and we do a lot of these, helicopter transfers are a great way to avoid just about any vehicle transfer in Guatemala. So you can fly from Guatemala City straight off your flight onto a chopper out to Lake Atitlan, and that's about a 30-minute flight. You can fly from Antigua to Lake Atitlan and back. You can even fly from Atitlan or Guatemala City or the lake up to the Petén where Tikal is. So very easy to connect places via helicopter, anywhere from 4 to 6 passenger choppers, and then to really cut down on those longer drives. As I mentioned, from Antigua or Guatemala City to the lake is anywhere from probably a 3 to 4 hour drive, depending on traffic. And then to get up to the Petén, where Tikal is, of course, you have to do a domestic flight if you're not taking a chopper. So helicopters are a great way, again, very private and exclusive, obviously, but also just to cut down on any longer drives. And then there really is a firm focus at Maya Trails on their local guide team. And they do source incredibly knowledgeable and culturally rich local guides in addition to their national guides. In the upper left-hand corner, you may have seen on Instagram or Facebook yesterday, we posted a video of Dolores Ratzan Pablo, who is one of Maya Trails local indigenous guides from Lake Atitlan. She was doing a tortilla making demonstration, and Dolores is really our go-to cultural guide at Lake Atitlan. She's an incredibly amazing woman who speaks fluent English because of spending about 15 years in the States, but also lives a very traditional Tsutsuhil Maya life. And she really is able to get our guests into under the skin, if you will, of what living living as an indigenous Maya woman in today's world is like. Miguel Ignacio is our guide in Chichicastenango. We'll talk a little bit more about him. And then again, for higher end groups or clients of yours, we can bring in archaeological specialists up in the Petén mostly. That's Francisco Estrada Belli, who is one of the foremost Mayan archaeologists in the world today, taking a group of ours around Tikal. So just keep that in mind, but know that you're always going to have, your guest will be in great hands with incredibly knowledgeable local guides, whether that's your tour leader guide or also your hop-on guides at the different destinations within Guatemala. So today, again, the focus is really on Lake Atitlan, as I mentioned, one of my soul places, and was coined by Alexander von Humboldt, the German explorer, as the most beautiful lake in the world. And Adolphus Huxley, an English author, also wrote that Lake Atitlan, or he says, Lake Como, it seems to me, touches on the limits of permissible picturesque. But Atitlan is Como with additional embellishments of several immense volcanoes. It really is too much of a good thing. And I think that really hits the nail on the head. 3 volcanoes surround Lake Atitlan, 12 indigenous Mayan villages. And as a result, you have this incredible natural beauty combined with incredible cultural beauty and cultural immersion with a variety of handicrafts on offer, really amazing local art, unique traditions as well, which we'll talk about. And then your active adventures on the lake, from kayaking and stand-up paddleboarding to hiking. And then it's a great wellness retreat as well for yoga, meditation, and the like. There's a lot of resorts and retreat centers specific to wellness and yoga and meditation. And then, of course, even if you're not going to one of those retreats, you can also practice that at your property along the lake in the morning, particularly sunrise yoga at Lake Atitlan is incredible. And there's that photo again. I just love it because of the sunrise. And Jimmy's family there on one of their more recent trips to the lake. And that is my last trip to the lake, which unfortunately was about 3 years ago with my wife and young daughter at the time. And doing a little guerrilla marketing there for another Kusini client. If you guys are looking closely, Jimmy needs to update my hat apparel there with the right logo. So as I mentioned, Atitlan is really a cultural immersion. And a lot of that has to do with those 12 indigenous villages. Well, really all of it does. And you're able to visit most of them. We have a couple that we like to visit in particular, but it's a great place as well to go and experience the Mayan markets, which really are, show daily life of a Mayan person in the highlands of Guatemala. Yes, Chichicastenango, most famous and largest Mayan market, and truly is authentic in many ways, but there's a lot of smaller markets, in particular the Solola market, which is just above Lake Atitlan, that is truly very real, authentic experience, and one that we do take guests to quite regularly. Oftentimes, if we're doing something like a cooking class, it's a great place to go and shop for ingredients for the cooking class with a guide and with your chef, and then to bring it back to your villa to prepare a meal with a view over Lake Atitlan. So the opportunities to visit markets, as I mentioned, some very unique Mayan traditions as well. This is one, this is Mashimon, who is a pagan folk saint of the Mayan world, and this is has become a bit of a tourist spectacle. This is in Santiago, Atitlan, but it is actually a real thing. It's not meant, or it's not set up for tourists. This is a medicine man who is praying to Mashimon for for business success for his clients. So people actually hire these medicine men to come and give offerings to Mashimon for whether it be business success or fertility or a long-lasting marriage, whatever it may be. And it's actually the responsibility of one family every year to look after Mashimon, to handle the flood of tourists and medicine people coming, and to keep his rum stocked and his cigar lit. And it really is their job for the entire year. They literally stop whatever else they're doing and focus on taking care of Mashimon. So a very unique tradition, kind of a melding as well, especially in Santiago. You'll see a lot of the syncretism of melding with the Catholic traditions, spiritual and saints with the ancient Mayan traditions, and Mashimon is one example of that. And then it's a great place to go and experience traditional backstrap loom weaving. There's many, many different women's weaving cooperatives throughout the lake. San Juan La Laguna is one village that we tend to visit on a more regular basis. It's a beautiful village. It has a number of these women weaving cooperatives. This was that same visit my last time there with some friends and my daughter. And you get to learn about how the women weave on the backstrap loom, from taking cotton and dyeing it to actually participating. There's Jimmy's son, Michael, participating with the backstrap loom. And it's a great way to really be able to sit side by side with some of these incredible artists and learn about their traditions and their handicraft. Also ceramics, in particular in Santa Catarina, Atitlan, which is one of the smaller villages, that has a really amazing tradition of ceramic artwork as well, where you can go and again watch the artists at work, and then of course buy some handmade ceramics or handmade weavings of various types at the different weaving cooperatives as well. This is also at San Juan La Laguna, but there are other art galleries throughout the lake, but in particular in San Juan has an amazing tradition of public art as well. This is actually a mural in that naif art or bird's eye view style that many of these Mayan artists practice. And you can go and see the artist at work. There are many other cooperatives. There's coffee cooperatives on the lake as well, where you can go and take a tour of a coffee plantation and cooperative, and of course go do the bean to bar or bean to cup sort of experience. And then there's also this medicinal plant cooperative in San Juan La Laguna, where you go and can actually see the herbs that are used then in various soaps and herbal remedies that they sell to local people as well. And then adventure activities. There's no shortage of amazing ways to explore Lake Atitlan and the outdoors, whether that's on the lake itself. There's Jimmy and his family. I think is that Jossie and his family as well from Tropic, Jimmy? They were doing a little family kayak trip on the lake. For those stand-up paddle boarders, you can also hop on a paddleboard and explore that way. And then there's a variety of hiking trails around the lake that are fantastic, from climbing San Pedro volcano, or just doing shorter hikes around the lake as well. One of the half-day activities that we often do with guests is about a 2-hour kayak along the lake from one small village, Santa Cruz, to another, to Jabalito or Sununa. Jimmy, which one?
Sununa.
To Zununa, right. And then you hike back from Zununa along, and this is actually a picture of me hiking along the lake back to this little town of Jabalito, and that's about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So about 2 hours in the kayak, depending on whether you go cliff jumping or not, which is an option on the way, and then a hike back, which is also about 2 hours. So a nice half-day activity that really gets you to be immersed in the beautiful landscapes and the environment of the lake. There's also zip lining, a really cool zip line near Pana Ashel as well. And if you're really adventurous, you can do paragliding as well. And then again, this is, if you haven't been there, it's hard to convey. For those of you that have been to Lake Atitlan, there's just something about the lake. There's just this spiritual energy that you feel, in particular when you're traveling around with Dolores, our guide, because she is just has such a spiritual presence herself. But just the lake itself, again, I think it has something to do with the ancient nature of the lake, with the Mayan spirituality there, and then just the incredible natural beauty. But it's a great place for wellness practices, whether that be yoga or meditation or otherwise. And there are incredible places at pretty much every property that you would have guests at to do those types of wellness activities, whether it's a sunrise yoga or meditation in a really beautiful forest with a view over the lake. So plenty of opportunities for taking a step back. And I think maybe after all this experience that we're going through right now, both us and our guests may be looking for those type of meditative and spiritual escapes. All right, we're going to jump into some of the properties. And today we're going to focus really on more of the higher end of the spectrum, exclusive use, some of the villas that Lake Atitlan has to offer. And the first is, many of you probably know, Casa Palopo. It's the only Relais Chateau property in Guatemala. I think it's one of only 2 Relais Chateaus, maybe 3 now in Central America.
Yeah,
And
3 in Central America.
3 in Central America, yeah. And it is I believe it's the first in Central America. It is an absolutely stunning property, as you can see from the photos of the interior there. Originally 6 suites that were of the original house that are perched up on the side of Lake Atitlan, up a little hill, and then they built an additional 6 suites, a little bit more modern style, but still with that, still with a lot of traditional Mayan architectural and artistic flair as well. And then they also have Villa Palopo, which is located above the main property. So it is something to keep in mind. You do have to climb about 150 steps to get up to the villa. I guess unless you land by chopper. I think the chopper lands right at the villa, Jimmy, is that?
It lands right in front of the villa, so that's just 15 steps.
Okay, so if you have guests that are limited mobility, best to chopper them in to land at the helipad, and then you have this beautiful 3-bedroom villa that is exclusive use only. It's obviously has these extraordinary views out over Lake Atitlan with that infinity pool, and then full kitchen. This is, again, as I mentioned, an activity we often do, whether people are staying at this villa or others, where they go and do a shopping trip to one of the markets, and then come back and do a cooking class with a local chef as well at your villa in your own kitchen, which is a great way to really have that exclusive culinary experience. So this is really one of our go-tos for private exclusive use. And, you know, rate-wise, Casa Palopo, even in high season, is 400 to 500 per room on the main property. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know if Jimmy, putting you on the spot here, if you know what Villa Palopo goes for exclusive use, but probably in about that same range, 500 per person in peak season, or 500 per
It's
room.
between 1,500 maybe a night, because since it's 3 rooms inside of the villa.
Right.
So it's average. I'm maybe you did put me on the spot there.
I'm sorry about that. But yeah, again, these are not super expensive in comparison to other Relais Chateau or, you know, 5-6-star luxury villas elsewhere in the world. So again, Guatemala does present a really great value for guests, and as well as being really truly accessible for to get there and for shorter trips. Another of our go-tos is Villa Balamya, and there are 6 different exclusive use villas here. From, I think they have 3 2-bedrooms, and then they have 3 1-bedroom villas, all of which have at least some sort of small kitchen. But these are great for, you know, families traveling together, multi-generational families traveling together, even for couples who really want to have their own exclusive use property. Again, this may be a trend we see post Corona, is wanting to travel in more exclusivity and have your own space and not share it with other people. And these present a great option for that, because they all are kind of self-contained villas of varying sizes. And again, rate-wise, the most expensive villa here is between 300 and 500 per villa, and that would be in the peak season. So again, very good value. And both Palopo and Balamya are located in near Santa Catarina Palopo, which is only, what, about 15 minutes from Pana Ishel, which is the gateway to the lake, Jimmy?
Yeah, about 15, 20 minutes.
So very easy to get to. And again, if you're flying via helicopter, Palopo, you can land right there at the villa. If you're flying to Balamya, Jimmy, where would you land to get to that property?
Flying the Balamia, we would probably use Panajachel,
And then transfer from there.
and then transfer. Maybe in Santa Catarina, Palopo, there's a place where we land as well. It's like a small soccer field. But yeah, it's a 20-25 minute tops if you chopper and then get to Villas Balamia.
Perfect. And then a new property for us, I think generally a new property, only a couple of years old, is this Casa Prana, which is pretty extraordinary. 8 suites, 3 of which on the top floor can be used exclusive use. So they do interconnect. They have a connecting, I don't know if they interconnect, but they have a connecting terrace in the front. And then you can also take it over as an exclusive use property, all 8 suites. And again, the rates for the panoramic floor for those 3 suites on the top, they range from $11.70 per night for all 3 of them, which works out to, with 6 people traveling together, you know, 195 per person per night. So again, an extraordinary value considering the level of luxury that you're and exclusivity that you're given here at this particular property. But they have a total, as I mentioned, of 8 suites, 4 junior suites, 2 master suites, and one luxury suite and the Prana suite, including, and then 9 acres of their own lush gardens with these panoramic views of Lake Atitlan. And this one is only accessible by boat or by helicopter, and they have their own helipad. Or by walking. So if you want to hike here, you can hike here. I think this is near Santa Cruz, La Laguna. Is that right, Jimmy?
Correct. Close to Santa Cruz.
So again, this and Casa Palopo or Villa Palopo have their own helipads right on site. So very easy for guests who are choppering from Antigua to fly in here and access the property directly. Okay, we're gonna wrap things up here, heading back toward the city, toward Guatemala City and Antigua, with a quick trip through Chichicastenango, and then we'll open things up for questions. Chichi is the largest Mayan market in Guatemala. I think it is that or Otavalo are the largest indigenous markets in the Americas. So it is a huge Mayan market. It truly is the supermarket for the indigenous Maya of the highlands of Guatemala. It is open on Thursdays and Sundays, so something to keep in mind in terms of planning. You can visit other days, and there is a smaller market, but it isn't quite as colorful and riotous and full of people or tourists, so maybe there's an attraction to that. It's about an hour and a half from the lake, so it can be done as a day trip from the lake, or on your way there or on your way out. So generally that's how we try to plan it, mainly because when you're at Lake Atitlan, you just don't want to leave, quite honestly. So it's kind of best to plan it on the way out there or the return to Antigua or Guatemala City. And it's some great examples of syncretism. Maybe the best example of syncretism in Guatemala is actually at Chichicastenango. We'll talk about that briefly. And then of course it's handicraft galore with lots of vendors to purchase handicraft, some authentic, some not so authentic. But then Maya Trails really looks for ways to get you away from the craziness of the textile and tourist market. And that is to go and explore the real market where the Maya and the locals are actually shopping. Here you can see Jimmy's son and daughter exploring the vegetable and fruit market. To go off to places like the cemetery, which is a really interesting place to visit. That's a lot of spiritual and syncretism between Mayan spirituality and Catholicism as well. And then visiting Santo Tomas Church, which is really one of the best examples of syncretism between Catholicism and Mayan spirituality in Guatemala. It was actually built on top of an old Mayan temple back in the 16th century. There are 18 steps up to the church, which represents the 18 months of the Mayan calendar. People still present offerings inside the church of livestock, and there are candles and shrines to Mayan saints inside the church as well. So really fascinating place to learn about that history of Mayan and Catholic syncretism. But then what I want to have Jimmy talk a little bit more about is really getting away from the center of the market, getting off the beaten path, and exploring again these incredible traditions that the Maya have that are truly ancient, millennial type of traditions. And one of those is going to visit a moreria, which is a mask maker. And Jimmy is going to talk a little bit more about that experience.
Another amazing fact about Chichicastenango is, like you mentioned, Santo Tomas, it's the syncretism. There's always a Catholic priest and a Mayan priest. So they're doing like a joint mass. So all masses normally masses are 45 minutes to an hour. The mass there could go from 2 to 3 hours. And then let's say the municipality, they there's a Mayan mayor, and there's a public sector mayor. So it's one of the only towns in Guatemala that still has these two different mayors handling all the political situation on the town. So that's why they kind of keep it that way, because you got the Maya that, taking care of it. And Chichicastenago is very close to my heart as well, because my great grandfather he built a hotel there back in the early 30s. There's even the headline where they say Gringo Loco builds a hotel in Chichicastenango. And basically, thanks to him, that's why Chichicastenango got on the map. He fell in love with the town because it was such a colorful, amazing town. All the Mayas would go in there, do all their bartering, and so he fell in love with it. He said, "I need to put a hotel there," and that's how pretty much Chichicastenango got on the map. And then you have the Moreria of Miguel Ignacio. Miguel Ignacio is the guy that you see there with the painting with my two kids. So this is his home. So he's one of the famous. He's fifth generation Moreria. Moreria, just to explain to you all, is they're the ones that are in charge of doing all the masks and the dress for the Santo Tomas festivities that are at the end of the year, from about 15th of December all the way up to Christmas. So they're the only ones that are the Mayas have designated these Morerias, and he's the only one in Chichicastenango that can do these masks, the dress. They teach you how to do it all. You can do your own masks. The kids love it. We have a cooking demonstration with his sister does a cooking demonstration. The little nephews do the dance right there in front. And the other amazing part is you have a Pascualabaj. It's a small mountain where you have the Tad, correct me, where they do the Mayan ceremonies up on this hill. It's about a 20-minute walk up, but the only way to get there is through their home. And 90% of the times when you go up there, you get to see a real live Mayan ceremony going on. If not, we can set it up as well. His mom she's a Mayan shaman, so she knows how to do the Mayan ceremonies. So it's amazing to go into his home. You have his sister, his mom. They're all there. They're the Moreria. They're the only ones in Chichi, like I mentioned. The other two Morerias are in Huehuetenango, farther closer to Mexico. So yeah, that's kind of the insider things that we do, and especially with Miguel Ignacio.
Yeah, it's a really cool and authentic, I know that's an overused term, but very authentic experience, which unfortunately oftentimes Chichi doesn't feel very authentic if you just go to the textile and handicraft market along with all the other gringos and tourists. So getting away from that, and yeah, go visit it and maybe buy a few things, although you might as well wait to buy it from the artist himself, like Miguel Ignacio, or even buy your handicrafts at Lake Atitlan, to be honest, or even Antigua in some ways, because Chichi does have a lot of not so authentic handicrafts. But Chichi can be a real authentic experience when you get off the beaten track, as Jimmy is explaining here, and meet people like Miguel Ignacio and his family and his mother. Go up to Pascualabaj, go to the actual Mayan market, and just let yourself be immersed in the what is really a feast for the senses, of all five senses, when you're inside the real part of the market. So that's what we try to do, try to get people away from that touristy area. Speaking of off the beaten track experiences, we'll finish up here and wrap up with two other destinations in the highlands in between Antigua and Lake Atitlan that we often visit with your guests. One of them is an alternative market to Chichi, and that's Comalapa, which is open, or the market itself is operated, I believe, Tuesdays, Fridays, Sunday.
Tuesdays
right?
and Fridays.
Tuesdays and Fridays. So again, if your timing doesn't work out for your guests to visit Chichi, or they don't want to go to Chichi, Comalapa is a great alternative. It's a smaller market, lesser known. It also has some very famous artists there as well. Famous panderias, or bakeries, where they bake a particular type of rusk or biscuit that is used in a lot of traditional ceremonies in Guatemala. many beautiful murals similar to San Juan La Laguna painted throughout the town. And then Iximché is one of the few larger Mayan ruin sites in the highlands. Most of the Mayan ruins you'll find, of course, are the famous ones are up in the Petén, where Tikal is, and Yaksha, El Mirador, places like that. But here at Iximché is right in the highlands, in between the lake and Antigua, and it's a place you can stop for a few hours to explore and learn a little bit more about the history of the Maya that lived here. And then also, we often do set up Mayan ceremonies here, so it's great for honeymooners who may want to have their marriage blessed, and this is a great place to do that. Again, a little less touristy than doing it, say, at Tikal or even Pascualabach, maybe. So nice ways to explore alternative places in the highlands, get away from people, and have a really meaningful and real experience. Anything else you want to add to those two places, Jimmy, before we jump into questions?
No, we're good. Awesome.
Cool. So that's our quick tour around the highlands of Guatemala and around Lake Atitlan and Chichi. We're going to open it up to any questions that you guys may have today, and you can put those in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and we'll get the expert there in Guatemala City to answer them. One question we got, Jimmy, is in terms of choppers cost. Can you give us a rough estimate of what a chopper will cost, say, to fly from Antigua to the lake?
Well, now with the prices of the fuel.
Yeah, right. So it's getting cheaper, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, roughly from Antigua to Lake Atitlan, if it's just two people in a smaller chopper, roughly it could be between $800 to $1,200 per ride. That's
Gotcha.
a bigger chopper that we're using a bigger machine. We can take maybe 4 to 5 people. There we're talking $1,500 to $1,800 per trip.
Got it. Okay. A few more questions coming in. How safe is it to walk around the lake and walk to a village? I think maybe talking about hiking between villages.
Sí.
I like the hike that I talked about from
Sí.
Sununada Jabalito.
It's super, Ruth. It's super safe. That Tad mentioned at the beginning, we have we have our dark past, and we have the bad publicity that we're an unsafe country, and that's not true. We always suggest that when you do those walks, you don't do it alone, because you become a target. You don't want to become a target, and you can become a target anywhere in the world. So just walking with a local, the locals, everybody knows the locals, and then nothing happens, but it's 100% safe. Then we have.
I was just going to say, Jimmy, Guatemala is a Category 2 country on the State Department website. So the same as most of Western Europe, much of like Southern Africa. So again, oftentimes misunderstood. Yes, there are parts of Guatemala City in particular that you don't want to visit, but that's the same for Seattle or for New York City or the Bay Area. It's really. I took my 1.5-year-old daughter, as you saw pictures of there, on her first international trip, and I took her to Guatemala, and I do it again today. You can see these questions, right, Jimmy, from Alexandra?
Yeah, I can see them. The sample 4 3-day nights to Atitlan hikes. That's the mecca of hiking is Lake Atitlan. You got so many hikes. We have an amazing hike. I don't think Tad mentioned it, that we go up to a sacred cave, and it's pretty much like Pascualabach that I mentioned in Chichicastenango. You go up, there's mainly always ceremonies going up there, and then from there you keep going up and you end up in Solola. So if we do it on the market day, let's say on Mondays and Saturdays that are Solola market day, you end up on the market, and then we drive you back down. So it's the mecca of hiking.
Yeah, and multi-sport. I mean, Alexander, you're talking about horseback riding, kayaking. We actually have a sample itinerary that's a multi-sport trip that Jimmy or I can send, and we'll send these all out to everyone in follow-up. But yeah, the lake, combined with Antigua in terms of hiking and multi-sport adventure is a mecca, yeah, for sure. And we can definitely make it very active for you. Is there still a nature reserve in the area, Jimmy?
Yes, you have the nature reserve that's right behind Hotel Atitlan, where there's a zip lining, and that's considered a nature reserve. There's another one across on the other side of the lake that it's another nature reserve as well. So yeah, to answer your question, there is.
What are the best months to travel to Lake Atitlan and some months to avoid, from Nicole?
Well,
You
I
want to
hadn't
take that?
seen. There's another
That's
box.
in chat, yeah.
Okay, now I see it. The best months to travel to Lake Atitlan. I'd have to say from November all the way up to May. Why those months? That's our dry season. The best months for me are November, December, because November is our windy season. So all the clouds go away, and you got the most amazing views of all these volcanoes. So mainly from, let's say, November, December, January, February, those are, I like to call them our volcano seasons, because that's where you get the best views. But Guatemala is 100%. You can travel all year round. It's a year-round destination. Yes, from May all the way up to mid-October is our rainy season. We don't get tons of rain. It's just like rainfall in the afternoon, then it clears up. Maybe the nastiest months of rain are August, September, but it's the rainy season as well. It's lesser visited, so you get better rates. You got less travel, less tourism, so there's less travelers going around. So you have pretty much everything to yourself. Everything's green because you got the rain, and that's why October, November, December are pretty good months because everything's still green from the rainy season.
I remember when TMLA was in Guatemala in September of 2015. It was pretty rainy for that entire period, and
See,
yet the people, especially the first timers who had never been to Guatemala, they were just absolutely blown away by the beauty of Lake Atitlan and Antigua and the country in general. Just absolutely blown away, and yet it was like it wasn't very good weather. You could barely see the volcanoes. The lake was shrouded in clouds, and it wasn't Guatemala at its finest, and yet people were still blown away. So like you say, Jimmy, you can really travel any time of year. September probably being the worst month in terms of weather, and
see,
yet people were absolutely in love with it. I
yeah,
took a group in June once of students on around a 2-week trip around Guatemala, and yeah, it was the rainy season, but it was afternoon showers occasionally. It was a great time, as you say, to be there because it was so green and lush. Flowers are all blooming. Guatemala is known as the land of the eternal spring, and that's because the highlands are at altitude, and so the temperatures are always very pleasant. The hottest it's going to get during the year is in the mid 80s, and then it kind of falls down at night. So even during the green season, which is the hotter time of year, it's still really pleasant you know all the
yeah.
time.
Then I see how many days you recommend staying at the lake area. At least 2 to 3 days. 4 would be the best. Danilo, to answer your question, then you have another question. How far the drive from Guatemala City to Lake Atitlan? It used to be very horrendous because we used to have to go through this town called Chimaltenango, but now they made a nice freeway that goes around it, and that took up took away about an hour and a half wait that we would always have to do. So now it's between I could say 2.5 hours to 3.5 hours is the drive time, or 20 minutes by chopper if you do it, but from the lake or from Antigua. And then Patty, I was late. Apologies. We will be sharing with all of you the recording of this, and then answering all these questions and anything else that you guys would need. We will update all this for you guys.
Just jumping back to Daniela's question about how many days. I think 3 nights is really ideal if you can, because that gives you 2 full days at the lake. And I'm telling you, again, if you haven't been there, when you get there or your guests get there, you're not going to want to leave, especially during those, like, as you call it, Jimmy, the volcano season. It is just so extraordinarily beautiful. And 2 full days gives you 1 day for cultural activities and 1 day for adventure, hiking, kayaking activities, if you want to look at it that way. So those 3 nights is really ideal. Yes, you can do it in 2 nights, but then you really only have 1 full day, and you do have to cram a lot in. And I guarantee your guests are going to tell you, why didn't you let me stay for longer?
Yeah.
Because it is so beautiful and so much to do. A few other questions on
Then,
the question tab there.
yeah, Maureen, yes, we do have sustainable hotels, lodges around the lake. They're more on the budget side. There's one that's really nice. It's a property called Laguna Lodge. We've had some issues with them. It's like everybody's having issues right now in this COVID season. So that's one thing to kind of look back at. But yes, we do have a lot of sustainable options. They're, like I mentioned, more on the lower end. And then Dennis is asking kind of an update on traveling in Guatemala in regards to the COVID-19 right now. Right now, Guatemala is pretty much on lockdown. No, our borders are closed. Airport is closed. I have insider access. I'm the vice president of the Cámara de Turismo. It's the private sector chamber. We've had meetings with the vice president, with the president, and we've been working very closely with them. The insider access, don't take any words because things change. If they find that more cases and more cases, things could change. But they're mentioning that as of the 1st of May, we will start to open up our borders. Flights are going to start to come in. The lockdown is going to start to ease down, but I think it's going to be a process. It's not going to be like boom, we open up borders and there we go. It's going to be a whole process how they're going to be taking all these restrictions. Let's say we have curfew. We used to have curfew from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. Now the curfew's from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. So it's gonna start to ease up. Our president reacted very quickly. He took decisions very smartly compared to other countries, and he's handled it really well. And the cases, we only have like 300 cases. We've only had deaths are in the single digits, so it's handled rather well. It's a shame because the economy that pretty much kills all of us business people and everything that's going on.
Yeah, we can
So,
all appreciate that. I think that was the other point we made with Dolores, the video of Dolores making tortillas. If you check out our Kusini Instagram or Facebook, you'll see that video. But she's opened up a corner tortilla shop in Santiago Atitlan because obviously there's no tourism and
yeah.
no guests for her to guide right now. So Meg, your question about do people swim in the lake and what's the water temperature like? Yes, people do. I love swimming in that lake. Cliff jumping is particularly fun on that kayak from Santa Cruz to Zununa. It depends on the season, what the temperature is like. It can be a little bit chilly in our winter season, but generally speaking, it's swimmable year round. Wouldn't you say, Jimmy?
It's cold. It's a refreshing water. Let's say if it's kind of like medicinal cold water, but it's amazing.
And there was a lot of real bad press. Again, unfortunately, Guatemala sometimes falls into these sort of things. But years ago, about the lake being polluted, and there was this algae bloom. I think that was in 2015, 2014.
2014.
2014, and it was awful. I was there in 2010, and they had a similar issue actually. But since that 2014 issue, they've done an amazing job. The government, as well as local hotels and the local villages, of cleaning the lake up and putting in requirements for septic tanks and for fertilizers for fields, and it's been an amazing regeneration of the lake back to the way it should be, which is a really pristine, pure place. So yeah, there were a few years there where swimming in the lake may not have been advised because of the bacteria, but it is all cleaned up and as you say, Jimmy, really refreshing place now. Danielo, do you recommend leaving the lake for the end of the trip? There's a lot of ways to slice it. Generally, Antigua would be first for 2 or 3 nights, then to Lake Atitlan for 2 or 3 nights if you're just doing the highlands. I think it is kind of a nice thing at the end of a trip if you're just doing the highlands to put Lake Atitlan at the end, because it is so peaceful and pristine way to finish off a trip and relax. If you're going up to the Petén, oftentimes the Petén ends up being the end of the trip just by
Yeah,
virtue of the way the flights work. Yeah. But if
yeah,
you're just sticking in the highlands, yeah, I think
yeah.
it works
Yeah, the
that way.
best way to end it is always up in Petén because it's you have the gateway entry to go into Belize, and you have your wow factor going to Tikal. But like Tad mentioned, if you're just doing the highlands, yes, the lake is that's where you should end the trip.
Troy, thanks so much. And again, Troy makes the point here. There's doing an Antigua Atitlan combo is an easy 7 to 8 day active cultural program. He
Correct.
should be doing the presentation, Jimmy. He just nailed it. So well done, Troy. I don't think you're on anymore, but thank you. Yeah, it is super easy. Like I say, 2-3 nights Antigua, 2-3 nights Atitlan. You could even do it 5 days, 6 nights sort of thing, and combine the two for a short trip. Very
And
possible.
Stefan's asking flights from where? Latin America or overseas? We have tons of flights from the U.S., Canada.
I think he's asking about flights that are potentially going to reopen, Jimmy.
Gonna reopen. I know U.S. is going to reopen. I know Latin America is going to reopen. Overseas, supposedly, we only have one flight from Iberia coming from Madrid, and I know they're scheduled to reopen on I think May 4th or May 5th. That's their plan right now to reopen here. So
It's all kind of a day by day sort of
see,
thing, though, as it is for all of
we're
us.
still on that.
Carrie, I should have, Jimmy, how do we forget to have Zacapa here? And
I know.
the next one, we're going to do a Zacapa happy hour, Jimmy. We didn't plan this very well. Jeez, we messed this one up.
I
We
know.
should have done this in the afternoon. I'm sorry, guys. Next time, we will have a happy hour with Zacapa, I promise.
Yeah.
Jimmy's always a good Zacapa dealer at any trade show for Latin America. So
Yeah, today I forgot it.
I know, Carrie.
That's that I'm well stocked up because when for Easter week, the whole week nobody could buy booze and there was a full lockdown on that, so everybody's stocked up on everything. So we're pretty much stocked up.
Peggy, yeah, go ahead,
yeah,
Jimmy.
It's a tough one. Why would I recommend the overnight in Chichi? One is to stay at the Mayan Inn. That's the hotel that I was mentioning to you guys. And 2 is so you go the day before to watch how the Mayas set up the market, and you watch how the cofradia comes in to Chichicastenango. The cofradia is the Mayas that come into Santo Tomas to do the mass. So that cofradia comes in the day before, and to watch them walk around, it's like a parade of these like high ministers of the Mayan beliefs, and it's amazing to watch that before. But staying a night there takes away a night at Lake Atitlan, so that's where you kind of like pick it, choose it. But we can chopper as well into Chichi because we chopper to Chichicastenango. People get off, visit Chichicastenango, then chopper to the lake. But yeah, if that would be my recommendation to stay the night in Chichi. But we mainly just do it as a drive-by, a day trip, and then back down to the lake.
Well, I think that's it, Jimmy. And what really came out of this was we totally failed to not bring Zacapa to the party. So so we will rectify that. Promises.
Okay.
To
I can go down to my bar and show you one, but it's.
But no, we'll plan a Zacapa happy hour. So thank you guys for so much for spending an hour with us, and hopefully it was a good break from COVID news and was educational as well. I think the next one we're going to do will be for the Petén, maybe, Jimmy. We'll have to talk about it, but we'll have another deep dive coming up, and and we'll try to keep them to about half hour, and then have it open for questions. So thanks, guys. We'll send you a link to the recording. It'll be archived on our Kusini YouTube page in our webinar playlist, and we'll send some other links to those Nat Geo and photos articles, and to some of those short escapes as well. So if you have guests looking to escape here once flights resume and do it in a short, 4 or 5 night sort of trip, we'll have that, as well as our other signature itineraries. All right, Jimmy, back to
Awesome.
homeschooling for both of us. I think.
know.
Good luck.
Take care, guys.
Have a good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us.
All right.
Abrazos.
See you guys later.
Ciao.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Dad. See you later, man.
Yeah. Take it easy, buddy.
You too, man. Bye.